So, set 8, Reign of Jafar, has more than halfway been revealed in these past couple of days, and that is a very exciting time. So, what are we looking at exactly? What are the best cards that have been revealed so far, and what can we look forward to on how the Reign of Jafar is going to be sweeping the meta here on May 30th? All of that and more right now. So with the Reign of Jafar, there's been a lot of things that have been coming around with this, and it's going to be really interesting to see what else is revealed, because it seems like Ravensburger is making some very interesting decisions when it comes to how these cards are going to interact with this meta. And it seems like there's a couple of different themes that they are trying to get going on different color combinations that are going to be making this meta kind of shift a little bit from what we're normally used to seeing to now what could be very scary, especially like with Chernadogs, Blurple, Amethyst, Amber, things of that nature that are going to be really interesting as well. And then also on top of that, we got some really interesting choices as well with like group songs, making kind of a big turn of events as well with this. So that's going to be really interesting to see. And it's also going to be interesting because it's like, what is Ravensburger trying to do with puppies? Are they trying to make that just a really good themed deck, or are they actually trying to make puppies break into the meta a lot more? That's yet to be seen. It's going to be interesting, but it seems like they are giving them the proper amount of support to at least make them going more towards a tier 2 deck instead of just a flat out, not even rogue deck, just a fun themed deck. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Ravensburger does here and what they can continue to do as the sets continue to be released. Now, with that as well, it's going to be interesting to see how pirates go about this as well, because it looks like we're getting some good pirates that are going to be sweeping into the nation as well, especially with Captain Hook that we're going to be looking into. And it's really interesting as well, too, because we got the 1-cost 1/2 Captain Hook with Challenger +2 that was reprinted and announced in this set as well. Now, of course, before we get started, the one thing that I am a little bit bummed about, not going to lie, is just the fact of the rotations and how all of this is going to go. I am more than perfectly fine with them going through and removing the 4 sets of the first 4 sets from on September with Fable being released. That's perfectly fine. But unfortunately, I wish that they would shift it a little bit, where instead of doing 4 sets every year on the month of September, so September 2026, these next 4 sets are going to be up and gone. I wish they would do one at a time, just so that we could at least get a little bit more use with these and have the meta be a little bit wider. And unfortunately, though, that still wouldn't necessarily fix all that much in the regard of that we are only going to be getting the Reign of Jafar literally for a year, whereas we're going to be getting Fable for 2 years just because of how the rotation is going to work with Lorcana, and that's perfectly fine. But with that being said, we're going to be looking at some very intense cards. Just had to get that off my chest instead of making it a video. But with that, it's going to be really interesting. And I mean, of course, one of the cards that we saw first and foremost here that is going to be very interesting is going to be this Minnie Mouse. Now, she's going to be an interesting one, especially just due to the fact of Bodyguard and also getting a +1 attack for each 1 damage on her. Now, is this going to be something that is going to necessarily be taking this deck to being played in the meta? That's yet to be seen, especially with the lack of draw that we see with these 2 color combinations. But still, it's at least going in the right direction. But again, there's other colors that just have way better card draw. They might not have as powerful of cards like this, for example, but they're at least going to have more cards in hand. They're going to have ramp and draw and things of that nature as well, which is going to make this very difficult to try to stay a part of. And so for me, I just don't necessarily think that that's going to be a meta card. Now, with that as well, this is going to be interesting as well, because the Tiana is going to be a really interesting one to take a look at. Now, of course, like we said, when Fable is going to be coming in, that is going to basically be wiping out a lot of Steel Song. Now, I'm sure, of course, Powerline is going to be coming in with Fabled as well, and he could possibly be an aerial takeover with that as well. Or they could just go ahead and bring back aerial. That is yet to be seen, but I could really see Powerline kind of being that replacement, maybe even a little bit more efficient than what we have with the original aerial. That's, again, yet to be seen. We don't know where that's going to go or how that's going to be played out, but at least they are putting singers here. Now, with that being said, this is kind of a Naveen take on this, which is also going to be really interesting because while yes, this is a good card, the Naveen card, which is still going to be in this meta, is going to be a better option in this case. Yes, it is really nice that each opposing character is going to get -1 until the start of the next turn. But with that also being said, whenever you play a song, yeah, that's okay. Whereas a Naveen at least can quest for 2, and it's a Singer 6, that's going to be a really big deal. And sure, it's 3/3, but that 2/4 stat line not going to really make too big of a difference in that regard, but still, it's a good card, and I'm glad to see that they're at least still going to be going into the Singer direction. Now, one of my favorite cards here, and this is going to be interesting, especially considering the fact of the matter that Daisy is going to be set 5, which means that Daisy is going to be in this meta until next September of 2026. That's going to be absolutely crazy to be able to see how that's going to be going about, but Lady is just going to be an absolute crazy card. Now, of course, we are going to be losing Smee. That is going to be something to keep in mind, but they still have a lot of other cards that we can target with this, and there is some insanity out there. Now, of course, this can go in Chernadogs. This can also go in Amber Amethyst as well. Both those aggro decks, even Amber Amethyst is going to be maybe a bit more mid-range, which is something that we can expect, but this is still going to be a really good card. Being able to get out a character with a cost of 2 or less for free and still being able to quest for 2 as a 2/2 for 3, you're getting so much value for not a lot of effort here in this case, which is going to be absolute insanity. Now, of course, with that as well, the hardest downside of this, with at least Chernadogs, is again that they don't necessarily have the card draw. Amethyst Steel, this could also be a really good one, and they don't necessarily have the card draw. But Amber Amethyst does have a decent amount of card draw, and this could be a very scary card with that as well, because if you get 4 of with this, whoo, that can be some devastation that you get going with that. So that's going to be really interesting to see here, and it's going to be interesting to see what all is going to be happening with the rest of these cards. Now, with that being said, too, it's going to be interesting because it seems like, again, like we said, they're trying to make puppies a little bit more relevant. I don't know why necessarily that they are going this route. Just because the biggest thing is, yes, there are some really good puppy cards, don't get me wrong, but it's like we're really missing, again, that card draw that is needed for these puppy decks to actually be a little bit more meta relevant. Yes, you are being able to add more ink to the inkwell by puppies that are in the discard and things of that nature. That's really awesome. Good job. Thank you for doing that. But if you don't have cards in hand to be able to utilize that ink in the inkwell, then there's really nothing going for you at that point. And I mean, Perdita here is nice. It's a 2 cost and able to be a 1/4 and give you your puppy characters +1 willpower. That's really good. But at the same time, that's still leaving a lot to be desired. Now, one of my favorite cards of this set. And if you guys didn't see me and Lore Gaines, he did a card reveal, of course, and it was the Zipper card, and that was awesome. And he made a support deck, and so for me to be able to, play some good games with him, I decided to make a Bodyguard set just because both those really complement each other. And it was all around Chief Bogo. Now, this is going to be a really interesting one, and the deck actually ended up playing pretty well, all things considered. And it was during your opponent's turn, whenever one of your characters with Bodyguard is banished, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a character with a cost of 5 or less, you may play that character for free. Otherwise, you may put it on top of your deck. Now, that's going to be a really interesting combination right there as well. And there's things that I've been running, whereas Doc, where he's able to make everything cost 1 less, or even Gaston as well. You go ahead and run the Gaston and things cost 2 less when he's activated, and you can get Chief Bogo out even on turn 4, then that can be a really great avenue for you to be able to go. Also, for him being a 5/5 for a 6 for this ability is going to be really good just because it's any character with the cost of 5 or less, and they come in readied, unlike the Mufasa. And so this is just one of my favorite cards here, and something that I am really excited to test around as well. Now, these next 2 cards are incredibly broken, and I'm really shocked by these. But again, it's a 7 cost that's uninkable, and it's a Shift 5, and there's, of course, a couple of Brunos that have been revealed, even in this set as well. Now, of course, this is why I'm also saying that Amber Amethyst is going to be a really good set, or a really good color combination, and possibly even a meta deck as well in tier 1 potentially, because Bruno Madrigal is a Shift 5, which is really good, and then whenever this character sings a song, you may draw a card for each character that you have in play. And that is the card draw that you are missing with the Amber side of things. But man, you can do that with Amber Amethyst, especially with the aggro. Imagine playing a lady of sorts and being able to get 2 characters out, for 3, and then on the following turn you're able to go ahead and shift in a Bruno and sing a song. Whew. Okay, draw all those cards all you want. That's going to be some really good moves right here. And being a 3/7 as well, he's going to be difficult to take out. And so it's going to be really fun to get that card draw going. Now, with this as well, it's going to be interesting because the Tramp is going to be making waves on the Churn Dog combination as well. And it's good to also see a Tramp shift. Whereas, the other Tramp, he costs one less for every, Tramp card or every card that you have in play, which is awesome. And then you get to draw and whatnot. But this is really interesting as well because, again, this is for Dogs getting some card draw as well, because during your opponent's turn, whenever one of your characters is banished, you may draw a card. And also, this being a 2/8, that's going to be really difficult to have to deal with, because at this point, pretty much the only thing that will take care of this is a Brawl in hand. But at the same time, come after September, Brawl is going to be out of the rotation. And so it's going to be interesting to see, like, what are you going to have to be able to really deal with a 2/8, trying to attack into that. And also, while it's in the ready position, it's not necessarily going to be something that is taken out. Now, of course, at the same time, there is still Into the Unknown, which is going to be a really good card as well, where you put the chosen exerted character into their player's inkwell face down and exerted. But that's, again, that's not going to necessarily mean if you go ahead and play the Tramp here, that's going to be anything that's going to be scary enough to actually take care of it outside of Brawl. Now, at the same time, more puppies, But the one we are going to at least talk about is the Perdita. She's a really interesting one because when you play this character, you may put all puppy characters from your discard into your inkwell face down and exerted, which is really good because, again, that can get you a whole ton of ink for you to be able to do a lot with it. And she is a shift 4, so there's a good chance that you're still going to have a decent amount of card draw to be able to get things moving. Still, at the same time, this isn't necessarily something that's going to be great, because if you don't have cards in hand, it doesn't necessarily matter because you can't necessarily flood the board with a bunch of characters. Now, of course, we do have the 6 cost Perdita that can bring a character back that costs 2 or less, which can be really good as well. But, again, that's not necessarily going to be doing anything to aid in this, but still, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Now, this Pluto we'll talk about a little bit. While this character has no damage, he gets +2 attack and gains support. So, I mean, come on, that can be really good, adding 4 attack to a character. And while he is not damaged, then, of course, if he does end up getting damage, you can go ahead and Rapunzel him, and then you can get some good damage counters off. Now, of course, there are also items out there that will remove damage as well. So that's going to be really interesting to see what he's able to do. This was one of the main cards that I played in my Bodyguard deck, just because, obviously, Bodyguard, and this is going to be really helpful with that. Now, when this character enters play exerted, that's awesome. That really sucks, but he still is a 0/4 for 3, and he quests for 4, and that's going to be raising some eyebrows. And especially, again, we don't know necessarily what's going to be reprinted. We don't know if Strength of a Raging Fire is going to be reprinted. We don't know if Zeus is. Things of that nature. So trying to do 4 damage to this bolt, especially in this next and upcoming set of set 9, is going to be really interesting as well. But still, if you're able to time it right, and you know that your opponent doesn't necessarily have the ability to remove, the bolt, and you time it correctly, especially with how many bodyguards you might be playing out on the board, he's going to be an absolutely great attribute to be able to have in your decks, especially being able to quest for forests. And in an aggro build, that is going to just be absolutely devastating. But even still, in Steel Song as well, you can go ahead and even protect the board fairly well, and then have this bolt drop down and, quest for 4. That can be a lot of utility for not a lot of effort. And that is why I absolutely love that card. Now, this lady's okay. Whenever you play a character, this character gets +1 attack, and while this character has 3 or more attacks, she gets to quest for 2. And at the same time, it's not until the start of next turn, which also kind of sucks. So when you end your turn, you go ahead and it's gone. No big deal. It's okay. Now, of course, Alma is going to be really interesting because once during your turn, whenever one or more of your characters sings the song, you may ready those characters. So if you go ahead and have a Bruno in hand, or if you have a Bruno out on the field and you shift him in with Alma being out as well, that is going to be absolutely devastating, because you can go ahead and sing a song, draw all those cards, ready him back up. He can sing a song, draw all those cards. There's a lot of crazy combinations, and again, being a 5/5 is going to be a little bit difficult to take out. So it's going to be interesting to see if we can get some good combos going on with that. And that is going to be something that we are definitely going to have to test with that. And so that's going to be something that I am definitely looking forward to. Now, of course, we got some good illusions. Again, we got our 1-drop illusion, we got the Raja and the next illusion set and everything like that. And it does feel like illusions are going to be a really good set combination. Now, with this as well, the Hades, the Madame Medusas, and things of that nature as well. When you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to chosen character of yours to return chosen character with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. That's absolutely insane. I mean, that's a great bounce back. And to really get out a very scary threat for 3 and dealing 2 damage to something, and it has to be another chosen character. So you can't just deal 2 damage to her and call it good. You have to choose a different character. But even still, if the character does end up surviving, and if it was going to be losing in a trade anyway, you can still go ahead and bounce something back to their hand and then go ahead and attack with the character that has the 2 damage on it, and it's going to trade into something else anyway. So it's going to be a lot of utility. And then the Hades is going to be really interesting as well, give or take. Whenever you this character quests, you know, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours and draw 2 cards. So there's a little bit of utility there. But again, Amethyst already has a whole lot of draw. Now, the Abu is going to be one that I am really eye-catching here. I really like this card. Now, it's a 6 cost. That kind of sucks. But at the same time, whenever this character quests, gain lore equal to the lore of chosen opposing character. So, I mean, you could be questing for 3 or 4 or 5 potentially, depending on the character that is out on the board. But even if you're going ahead and questing with him, and then all of a sudden you're able to go ahead and gain 2 additional lore on top of that, that can be a really big difference maker. At the same time, though, the vanish is a little bit difficult to have to deal with, especially with something like, Strength of a Raging Fire, only needing to deal 1 to him, or Let the Storm Rage On and things of that nature is going to be really easy to go ahead and get him into the discard. And it's not when this character comes into play and quests. No, it's just when this character quests. And so there's going to be ways for you to be able to at least target him and get rid of him in that case with an action card. And that's going to be the sad part there, but that's okay. It still actually is a pretty good card. Now, with that being said, we're going to be scrolling for a little bit. The Pinocchio is actually going to be really interesting as well. And I'm looking like, whenever, once during your turn, whenever you ready this character, you may draw a card. And that's once during your turn, which can be really interesting as well. And so that can be a +1 card draw. Also, being a 0/4 makes it pretty interesting to try to get these cards moving here. And it would be actually a pretty good card to either get into the Amber Amethyst combo here to try to get things going. I think that would be actually a pretty good combination here, and especially with the evasive, just going ahead and having him go ahead and get things going. Also with the Peter Pan in play, which is going to be removed in September, unfortunately. But until then, of course, this is still going to be a really good combination because there is nothing wrong with going ahead and having an evasive character go ahead and attack into something to take maybe a damage, potentially, maybe 2. Even 3, there's not necessarily a whole lot that can remove him outside of, brawls and things like that. But if he does end up surviving when he is readied up, then you can go ahead and get get that card and call it good. So it's going to be really interesting. This Bambi's interesting, and of course we do have an enchanted that's with it as well, and that's why I'm kind of iffy on how good or bad this card is going to be. Now, of course, it is a better White Rose in the sense of that when you play this character, you gain 1 lore, and whenever your opponent plays a character, return this character to your hand. And so, yeah, it's nice. It's not a 3/3 by any means, but it can still quest for 3. But still, it is so easy to deal with. I think this card is just kind of going to be forgotten. You might see some play with it, maybe, and some people testing it out and whatnot. But otherwise, it's not going to be really all that special. This card's going to be really interesting, though, because you can move 1 damage counter from this character to chosen opposing character. And moving a damage counter is going to be a really big deal because that's going to be so nice just to be able to pick it up, and it ignores resist. And that's going to be the biggest thing, especially with the pirates, the Calhouns, and the things of that nature that are going to be really interesting in this matchup, and especially with all the cards that are going to be dealing damage to your characters. To go ahead and remove 1, that's going to be pretty good, and that's going to be interesting to see as well. Now, Mother Gothel is going to be interesting. And I don't know how I feel about this, because when you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours and give that character challenger +1. And when this character is banished in a challenge, return this card to your hand this turn. And so it's going to be really interesting because, yeah, again, that's going to be a trade value kind of thing. And it might be even a character that you're already going to be losing. So that's not going to be, necessarily anything bad. But if you're about to lose something of value that you don't necessarily want to, even if you're about to lose even a Maui, for example, and you can go ahead and, trade a Maui into something, add him back to hand, that can be something that is very interesting to try to get going here on this, this way. But at the same time, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Now, this, of course, is going to be your bread and butter here. Now, the hardest part about this is it's not a shiftable Jafar by any means, but still, he is a really good one. And I still feel like that the Jafar that is going to be whole new world and everything is still going to be utilized as well. But maybe even so, it's going to be time to shift into full illusions, especially as we go into all the additional support that they ended up having with this. At the same time, though, this Jafar is just an absolute beast. But being a 4/4, the Zeuses are going to be able to take him out, which is going to make it really difficult to be able to maintain his board state, especially against steel matchups. Otherwise, like, he's going to last a pretty good amount, but still, at the same time, once he gets out, it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to be able to manage things properly. Still, though, whenever this character quests, you may draw a card and then choose and discard a card. If it's an illusion character, is discarded this way, you may play that character for free. So yeah, gosh, go ahead, give me a couple of cards in hand, and this is going to be super awesome to be able to see. And so we're going to see how that is going to go. And so with that being said, there's not necessarily a whole lot for the next few cards, but still the sing together is going to be interesting, especially with, like, for example, Bruno being able to sing this at 9. For each character that sang this song, draw a card and gain 1 lore. And if you team that up with the Bruno and you also have the Alma out onto the field and you can ready it back up and you draw all those cards, and even if you have another song, Bruno can sing it again, and then, oh my gosh, like, there's just some mayhem here, and this can really be a big thing too, because if you have 4 or 5 characters that are out onto the field and they can sing a song together, then they'll be able to get some things going with the lore gain. You could gain 3-4 lore on top of that, which would be absolute insanity. And then with that as well, when one or more of your characters sings a song, you can just ready up those characters and quest again. Call it good. I mean, and so that's why it's going to be such an interesting combination. That could really be a game ending kind of move right there that we are going to be having. And so it's going to be fun to see how that goes. Now, Scarabs are going to be really good for the, support of illusions, because you go ahead and pay 2 and exert it, and you can return an illusion card from your discard to your hand. You can go ahead and do that real quick, and then you go ahead and exert the Jafar, for example, and then you go ahead and play the illusion for free. You can even discard, the Abu, for example, and then just go ahead and return him to your hand, or, kind of thing. Even if he goes ahead and, there's some really interesting ways to be able to get, some really high cost stuff. The Iago being in the discard and being able to return him to hand can be really good as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what illusions are able to do. And I am excited to see how it is going to be unraveling as things go. Ice Spikes is going to be a really interesting, and I'm surprised it's an item as well. I don't necessarily feel like it should be an item, but it is. It feels like it should be more of an action, but, here we are. And when you play this item, you can exert chosen opposing character. And 1, and tap. And you exert chosen opposing character, and it can't ready at the start of its next turn. Item removal is going to be a necessity again, because, man, Blurple with this is going to be insane. And even if you go ahead and add, all the other items, Ice Block and Coil and all those jazzy cards, there's a lot that can be really scary now with Blurple. And even just this card with Blurple can really slow things down with these characters to really stop them in their tracks. And Ice Spikes, I mean, for one, on a deck that ramps and is able to do so much, is going to be really scary to see. With that as well, this is going to be a tramp. Now, this is going to be really interesting, because when you play this character, chosen character gains ward until the start of your next turn. And I mean, then you can go ahead and shift in the big tramp after on the next turn on top of that as well. So being able to protect something of value from being or from being any activated abilities, that's going to be really good. Can't be targeted. And being a 3/3 is also really nice. This card I'm not necessarily psyched about. It's not going to be a great card by any means, But, I like it. The biggest thing that I would necessarily say is that this is kind of a letdown in the sense that I really wish that this card had the ability to say, when this character enters play and whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character can't quest during their next turn. I get it, but it's still a little sad that you can't necessarily go that way. Now, these next two cards are absolutely insane, and I am so excited to see how this is going to go. Captain Hook, the Pirate King. First and foremost, once during your turn, whenever an opposing character is damaged, your pirate characters get +2 attack and resist +2 this turn. It's a 4/5, it's a shift 3. And that can be absolutely devastating to get out on turn 3, especially if it is able to go ahead and attack into something and things of that nature, and then really starting to get some things moving here. Now, this Maui is going to be absolutely insane too. A 6 cost, 4/4, same color combination as above, and when this character is banished, choose one. You put 2 damage on all opposing characters, banish all opposing items, or banish all opposing locations. Oh my gosh, for 6. And it's able to quest for 3. So if you go ahead and have, quest for 3 on that as well, even if not, and you're able to go ahead and put 2 damage counters on all opposing characters, cool. Now, of course, the only thing is that the let it goes and things of that nature that are going to be adding it into the inkwell can be a little bit devastating because you're missing that ability. But still, if you're able to go ahead and quest for 3, it's already paid for itself. And then once it's banished, it's going to be something to write home about. Now, again, this is going to be scary for Chernodogs. Now, when you play this character, if you have 3 or more characters in play, gain 2 lore. That can be a really big game changer, especially at the end. And with Go-Go as well, potentially in hand, there's a good couple of combinations that you can have with that, which can be really interesting to be able to have. Now, there's not necessarily a whole lot coming up, at least. Now, there's another Sing Together song, which is something to consider as well. You ready all your characters. For the rest of the turn, they can take no damage from challenges and can't quest. So you go ahead, you can, even go ahead, and you don't have to even necessarily sing it together. If you're already, have a pretty decent board size, you can go ahead and quest with all of them, pay 8, they ready everything, they take no damage, and that's awesome. Now, this could also be a really interesting one that could make a really big difference for, Ruby Steel with the Mushu going on. This could be a really big card that can make a huge difference with this because, they will take no damage. So even without a Mushu, they can go ahead and do some things. Now, of course, that's going to rely on the opponent's characters being exerted as well, which can be a little bit difficult. Now, of course, this is, pretty much the Hiram equivalent, give or take. And this is a smart way to do it. Again, though, I kind of wish they still had the when they come into play ability because you're already not going to be getting the item ability. It just automatically goes into the discard. And, that can be really nice because you can run some lucky dimes or things of that nature. But at the same time, as soon as you discard it, you go ahead and draw 2 cards, and maybe you get this ability off once, but you're able to draw 2 cards. Not too bad. But it's nice just for that ability alone. We'll see if it actually sees any play. Now, this Ratigan is going to be really interesting as well. First off, it has Ward. It's an 8 cost. And at the end of your turn, if you didn't put any cards into your inkwell this turn, you banish this character. So there's some reliance there, sure. But at the same time, being a 6/7, that quest for 4 for 8, that could be a game-ending card right there, which will be really interesting to see if Blurple plays it, or even a completely different Sapphire deck as well, because this can be a really good card. Allies are going to be interesting as well. Just because whenever you play this character, if you have an ally character in play, you may draw a card. Sapphire Steel might very well be back in this meta, and that's going to be something to consider here because, it can get some good card draw, it has some good bodyguards, it has some good support, and it can be really interesting to see. Aladdin, we've already seen revealed. I'm not going to spend time on it, but this Jasmine is really interesting as well. It's a shift 2, and of course, whenever this character quest look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you may reveal an ally character and put it in your hand and put the rest down the bottom of your library in any order. That's pretty good. And also being a 2/5 is really nice. Now, the questing for 1 kind of sucks, but being a shift 2, getting it out on turn 2, getting the card draw going again, you do have to rely on a lot of the allies, for example. But, there's still going to be, some really good allies that you can go ahead and utilize with this. and it's going to last on the board for a decent amount as well. Now, of course, here's another Sing Together song. Remove up to 3 damage from any number of chosen characters, and all opposing characters get -3 attack this turn. Now, this can be really interesting for Ruby Sapphire as well, especially if you have, the other card that will allow you to go ahead and ready everything up and they don't take any damage as well. That can be really interesting. And -3 on everything and removing all damage, that is gonna be scary. There, of course, is the OG Captain Hook reprinted. And that's the card that Lorcane's revealed. So that'll be really interesting. But there's a couple of really interesting cards that are left. Not really all that much, but I mean, when you play this character, you may deal 3 damage to chosen character for a 7 cost. It's okay. It's not necessarily super impressive, but it's definitely interesting enough, and especially dealing 3 damage, you can do a lot of damage with that as well, so it'll be interesting to see if it sees play. Same with this Mickey. We, of course, have the Mickey that was revealed, and it's a bodyguard 10/10, and whenever this character is banished, deal 5 damage to each opposing character. But holy crap, trying to get to that 10 is just absolute insanity, so I can't wait to see even if this is going to see play. I mean, it's a legendary card, so we'll see if it's able to do anything. It also wouldn't surprise me if there's an enchanted revealed about this as well, just because it's Mickey. We'll see, though. Other than that, though, there's not really anything here, but I mean, I love the enchanted artwork of this card. Really great card. And I'm excited to see what else is going to be revealed. Now, of course, we do have, like, this puppy card, and Beyond the Horizon, another Sing Together, and chosen any number of players, they discard their hand and draw 3 cards. That could be really good as well. So we'll see how all of this goes, but I'm also very curious to see how this is going to really affect the meta, essentially. It could be doing, it could be putting in a lot of work, and it could actually be hurting a lot of things as well. But again, they're going to be trying to get things going. Again, they're going to be trying to push the boundaries, as they said, with these, cards that they are going to be releasing. And it's going to be even more important to see how all of this is going to be impacting the meta after, sets 1 through 4 are banned. But again, that's going to be at least 3 months away that we don't necessarily have to worry about just yet. But what cards are you looking forward to with this set? What are you hoping gets revealed next? And with that being said, what deck are you looking forward to most playing on May 30th when this gets revealed? Thank you guys so much for being here, and until next time, guys, have a good one.